So Assembly Bill 173 requires the Department of Justice to release gun owners' private information to UC Davis and other universities. Just signed by Gavin Newsom, this bill is a huge privacy rights breach.
But first, American Shooters is the newest gun shop in San Diego and the Gun Owner Radio's newest show sponsor. If you're looking for a great gun shop for any of your firearm needs, go visit American Shooters. Tell Ernie you heard about them on Gun Owners Radio. They have a great selection of new and used and consigned firearms. Visit American Shooters at 1464 Graves Avenue off the Bradley exit in El Cajon.
All right. Morgan Ballis, the Chief Firearms Instructor for Defensive Tactics and Firearms, and San Diego County Gun Owners board member, and personal friend, and fine judge of scotch.
And he loves spaghetti from Denny's.
And he loves spaghetti from Denny's. Who doesn't?
How bad could that be?
Yeah. How you doing, Morgan?
Doing great. I'm definitely not a Denny's spaghetti fan, but I appreciate
the rest.
Hey! Have you tried it?
Yeah.
I could not bring myself to. Although it did take me 3 tries on gas station sushi to realize that's a bad idea.
Oh, well, that's if you ever go to lunch with Mike, that's one of his gourmet choices.
Right.
So you'll know. Like gas station sushi?
No, spaghetti.
All right, Judgy. All right, listen, thanks for being on the show, man. How you doing?
Doing great. I appreciate you having me and talking about something that's definitely really important.
Yeah, so AB 173 passes, and I think it's kind of one of those.
What is AB 173?
AB 173 is basically they're going to allow gun owner information to be passed off to the academic world.
Yeah, and that was under the guise of research, right? They're supposed to be able to. It's supposed to be universities and other organizations.
Right. It's basically what it really amounts to is universities in California that want to do research that will result in evidence that guns need to be banned. They're going to give them as much government information as they need in order to get to that conclusion. That's the way I see it. But it is, Morgan. Obviously, it's one of those. It's bad, but I don't think people realize how bad it is. I don't think people realize why it's bad. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm about 4 years into my PhD, and so I'm very familiar with the academic process and using human participants and just that whole aspect of research. And research is phenomenal. Research is something, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, that we should all encourage because data is powerful. Data should drive our policies. It should drive our training, our curriculum, all those things. However, there are some very specific ethical considerations, especially when we're using human participants. And I really feel from a research perspective that this bill, and by proxy UC Davis, who specifically named 173, essentially establishes the CA or the California Firearm Violence Research at UC Davis. I feel like they're violating their own policies when it comes to human research and getting consent. They're violating the fabric of the National Research Act and the Belmont Report. So for me as a researcher, I step back and I say, man, there's some potentially very negative consequences for participants in this study, and those participants are gun owners in California.
Well, and these aren't willing participants either. We didn't. Nobody asked me if I wanted to participate in this. So I think the potential for abuse there is tremendous, I think.
I think it is, and here's why. The NRAILA lawsuit specifically says that people provided this information specifically for law enforcement purposes, not research or to be used in any other capacity. But when we talk about informed consent, and the reason that that's important in research is because there are potential consequences for those participants, right? And as a California gun owner, if my information does get released in some way, then I can face those consequences. I can face maybe financial consequences from an employer that doesn't agree with my position, societal consequences, if people, the church I attend or those around me no longer want to interact with me. There's all those consequences. And the problem with this and not asking gun owners to provide their consent is there is zero way, there is no possibility that this information can be completely controlled. Meaning, let's just assume UC Davis and all the people that have their hands on this at that institution would 100% protect our personal information. As they share that, the number of people who get their eyes and hands on this becomes compounded. And those individuals along that process, they might see it as, hey, I have a responsibility to share this information. And here's where we know that this is a true possibility. If we go back to New York in 2012, what did we have? We had a newspaper that literally shared the name and addresses of individuals that were approved in New York to carry a handgun. So it's not far stretched to say that someone that gets their hands on this information shares it, and we get gun owners that are outed here in California.
And what's the realistic danger there, Morgan?
I think the danger, it goes back to those individuals and those potential consequences, the societal, the financial consequences, or potentially for people to be targeted by criminals knowing that they have firearms in their house. But also, another big thing with research is I have to identify populations that are vulnerable populations, right? Children, people in prisons, mental health institutions, generally those are vulnerable populations. But think about some of our California residents and why they are purchasing firearms or getting their concealed carry permits. We have people that are victims of sexual assault, of domestic violence. These are the most vulnerable populations that you could possibly identify in research. So the potential is that those people are now going to be even more exposed, and they're going to suffer consequences beyond what maybe someone isn't in that same population might face.
So are you aware the NRA lawsuit, the NRAILA lawsuit, are you aware is part of the case that they're making that, hey, we didn't give consent and that goes against your, that's against the law to experiment on people without their consent? Is that an actual part of the lawsuit?
I don't know if that is. What I had read, it was just very general. I think it's a very strong position for them to bring forward. The university is going to counter. They're going to say, look, we have this entire process that anyone that wants this information, they have to, go through our institutional review board. They have to show how they're going to protect participants' information. But again, the problem with that is the number of people that are going to have access to that data as this continues to go forward. And look, again, I'm all for research. I think the solution here is simple. If you are purchasing ammunition, if you're purchasing a firearm, you add a consent statement to that purchase. You let people on their own decide whether or not they want to participate in this research. And I think that's an easy way, or that's how I would counter the argument, because what they're going to say is, if you look at UC Davis's standards, they're going to say, well, one of the exemptions is that we would not be able to gain access to this information. It's just impossible. Well, that's not true. You had a little box that says, would you like to participate in this research? Here's where you can get more information about how it'll be used. And then informed consent is now a possibility. So for me, I really feel like UC Davis and anyone else that gets involved in this is really going beyond those ethical standards of research and getting that informed consent.
Morgan, what do you see as a potential benefit, say, to the public of these organizations having access to that information? Because, if it was some kind of neutral subject or something like that, I could say, all right, well, maybe. But, gun ownership in this country is a pretty emotional subject, for both sides. And, universities and governments, particularly in California, don't have a great track record for, doing what they're supposed to be doing or keeping things confidential. So it seems like the risk is to people is pretty great. So what's the potential benefits then of this?
Let's just assume that we were able to truly protect people's individual information, right? That we maintain that standard no matter what. I think the benefit that is there, or potential benefit, is that we now have data that supports the position that law-abiding citizens, especially those that get their CCW permit, are far less likely to be involved in any crime, to include traffic violations, than other segments of the population, even than law enforcement officers. I think the data has the potential to demonstrate that increased firearm ownership does not correlate to increased crime for those individuals. So I think there's definitely some potentials for gun owners if there is truly unbiased research being conducted. And that may very well happen, There may be researchers out there that truly go into it thinking one thing, and they come out on the other end and they say, man, this really did change my opinion, and what I had thought the outcome was going to be, it's not the outcome.
So it seems like, like the specific examples you just gave, it seems like that information is already out there under, from different sources. Like you're familiar with the big study that was done in Florida with concealed carry holders, where they determined that they were arrested at 1/6 the rate of police officers, things like that. Right. Because, when you talk about crime and things, that if you're arrested for a crime or something like that, that becomes public. So that kind of information is out there. But it's just, oh, go ahead.
Well, that's okay. Let's hold that thought hold that thought for 1 second, my friend. We do have to go pay some bills. We'll come back with Morgan Ballis, Chief Firearms Instructor for Defensive Tactics and Firearms. All right, folks, we are very proud to partner with the National Concealed Carry Association as a 10-ring partner. NCCA exists to serve the Second Amendment community by providing a nationwide network of 2A advocates. They offer elite self-defense and concealed carry training from the nation's top instructors. They provide rock-bottom prices on the best selection of gear and accessories. Join them today. Members get great prices and free shipping. Learn more about them at nationalconcealedcarryassociation.com.
All right, Morgan, continue that thought.
Yeah, you're going to have to reset me.
Well, so talk more about, where do you think this is going to go? I know you're not an attorney and you didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but if you had to guess, what do you think the crux of this case is going to be decided on?
I think what it's going to come down to, well, first of all, I think that the position of the lawsuit is great, because what it's saying is that this information was given for law enforcement purposes with that sole intent, both by the people that provided that information and as the state said it was going to be used, right? So clearly both of those assumptions were wrong, as they now offer this up for a research study. I think what the other side is really going to focus on is that, hey, this information is protected, and the value gained, right? The benefit outweighs the risk, because we're going to gain vital information on crime, statistics, on all these other things. Now, I don't personally believe that, but I think that's the position that they're strongly going to take. They're going to go back to the institutional review boards and what are the standards for sharing this information and all the protections that they say are in place.
The information they're getting is, name and address and type of firearm, right? I mean, what kind of research can be done with the information they're getting?
I think what they would likely do is they're going to run criminal checks. They're going to run background checks on those individuals to some extent, check criminal databases, maybe look at self-inflicted gunshot wounds to try to see if there's any correlation there. Possibly look at the time frame from which someone purchased a firearm and ammunition and when something happened, whether that be a crime or some sort of injury or death. That is what I would suspect that they're using it for.
And I'm not sure that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, but it's just who's getting that information. What is the definition of we know, because we've experienced this being on this side of the conversation, that there are groups who claim to be doing research, right? Gun violence prevention research, and it's 100% biased. It's with a political goal in mind, and it really actually prevents us from having meaningful conversations in this space, and that's a scary thing for firearms owners in general.
I agree, but the information that we just talked about and the reason for it, this isn't the only way to get it either. So I guess what I'm saying is the conclusions they're going after. This isn't the only way they can get there. They can go to hospital reports, whatever. There's other ways to do this. So it's not even like this is completely and totally necessary to even get to where they're going. The problem is once information's released, it's released. You can't, you know what I mean? You can't, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube.
100%. And that's what goes back to the ethical side of what they're claiming that this is for, is that you cannot truly protect that information. And we're talking about people's social security numbers, right? So another question I would ask is, how is that information being shared between entities? How does the DOJ get that to the university? And if I submit a request for that information, how is that information then transferred to that next person, so on and so forth, right? Is that going out electronically? Is it a hard drive? And what are the risks even in just losing that individual information?
They just throw it on
it might sound like a petty thing, but that's a huge...
Throw it on a spreadsheet and they email it from their Yahoo account, I think is what...
I mean, that's almost guaranteed to happen. There's no way to reasonably keep that information secure. It's just not possible, in that kind of a situation.
Yeah, and you're completely correct. And the only way for some of this research that I would foresee it happening is they do have to have that information. They have to have the name and the social and those things to be able to gather that additional information to correlate whatever they're trying to look at. And again, you cannot reasonably protect those people's information. And then we go back full circle to their consent was never given to begin with, right? Now, if I give you my consent, then that's what it is. So the simple solution is add it. Just add a little box on whatever it is and let people decide whether or not they want to participate in the study.
Yeah, well, and then, of course, no one's going to participate, and I don't blame them. Because the other part of this is, how much do you trust academia? You know what I mean? Like, how much do you trust them to come to a real, true conclusion? How much do you trust the science that you think that they're going to practice?
Well, again, I think the potential is there for some real great research that can highlight the positive benefits, not just for individuals, but for society as a whole when law-abiding citizens have access to whatever self-defense means they deem is appropriate for them and their families. But, I think the assumption would lean more the other way, where the majority of this research is going to be used probably with bias and negative intentions to begin with, And then I think another fair question to ask is, you have an institution like UC Davis who controls this data. What is their willingness to allow that equal level of research? Are they only going to share it with people that maybe lean towards their own biases, or are they willing to put the information out there that might contradict their own beliefs? And it's a fair question to ask.
I think the catalyst, or maybe even just part of the catalyst, part of the reason that they're doing this in California is that the anti-gun groups are very mad that there are certain restrictions against information sharing and that sort of thing on a federal level. with the CDC and the ATF and that sort of thing. How much do you know about that? Am I explaining that well enough, or how much do you know about the restrictions or the firewalls that they have on the federal level?
Right. Yeah. So, without knowing the specific law or what was passed, but essentially, Congress prevents the sharing of information based off of data that's collected for running your background check. Right.
Right.
So they can't then turn around and take that data to conduct, research with it. And to me, that goes back to not wanting to conduct research, but the inability to protect and guard that information that is so sensitive in nature. And I think that's the right way to go. You let people decide whether or not they want to participate and expose themselves to those potential risks.
Yeah, because I don't know. It's hard to trust that environment there. It's like when the law enforcement deals with terrorists and things like that. Law enforcement only has to be right, or they have to win every time. The terrorist only has to win once. It takes one social justice warrior at UC Davis to decide they're going to release 100,000, information on 100,000 gun owners, and it's done. It's out there. So it doesn't seem like it's a viable thing to think that they can keep it secure like that. But again, I don't think that's the intent either. I think there's always a different or a hidden intent with this kind of stuff. Yeah, and
circling back to, I think Mike asked a question earlier, how else could they do this, or is there a way they can do this research? I think there's a way, by asking the DOJ to add to some sort of, add something to their annual statistics that they're providing or the data that they're providing. They already own that information. Expand maybe what they're reporting on to, maybe cover some of those questions that are possibly going to be asked in research. I don't think that I think there's definitely people in this process who already believe the data is going to confirm whatever their position is. There's no doubt there's people that are there. But I don't see what the possible gain is going to be for those individuals based off of the data that they're getting. There's too many things in place right now that can already provide some of that information.
Yeah, it really just feels like so much of politics, is they drew a line in the sand and they said, hey, you know what? On the federal level, we're not going to release this type of information so that you can do research and use that research to ban guns. We're not going to do that. And so that line was drawn, and now the people on the other side of that line. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad or whatever. They just, okay, well, now we have to fight on this side of the line. We have to take on this opinion. So it doesn't matter how fruitful or important or whatever. It doesn't matter if they can get this information or they can go about this another way. All that matters is, hey, we're on this other side of this political line, and now we have to do everything we can to win, and that's what they're doing. Okay, well, in California, we're going to go after the information that we think they should be using on the federal level. And, it's not good government. What do you think, Jackson?
Yeah,
do you want your information out there, buddy?
Yes and no.
Yes and no? All right. That's fair. It's a very balanced answer. What do you fear about people knowing stuff about you?
Or like private information and all that. That's why I don't want them to know that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Morgan, he's 8 years old, man. He gets it, Gets
it. Sometimes that's when you got to go back. I don't think you're far off, Mike. I think that it's let's chalk this up as another win. We're just going to tout that we're doing this. It'll be interesting to see where this lawsuit goes. Again, I think their position is great in how they framed it. And let's just hope that we can get another win and stop this from going forward.
All right, we're going to take.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. You can watch us live every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, right here on our YouTube channel, or if you're in the San Diego area, you can listen to us on 1170 a.m. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform for free. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
so that you can help restore and protect the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.